Hello everyone, these are the settings I recommend for Halo Infinite controller. First up, in the controller tab, you're going to want to go down to auto clamber and make sure that's turned off. The reasoning for this is because most jumps in the game can be made without having to mantle. And when you mantle, it takes away your ability to shoot and aim. So if you get used to climbing over objects without clambering over them, you'll always be able to shoot your enemies while jumping over stuff, making it more likely you win gunfights because you'll be better able to maneuver without losing your ability to aim and shoot. Next up in the controller tab, we have sensitivity and acceleration. These things are all preference, but I have my look acceleration set to 4 because the biggest thing keyboard and mouse players have over us is the fact that they can look around near instantly. Look sensitivity set to 6 for both look horizontal and look vertical. I have my zoom level set at 1.4x. I think that's the default. 1.4x makes it so when you aim down sight, your reticle moves slower. It's a handy little feature to have. Next up is move and look thumbstick. For center dead zone, you're going to want to set your center dead zone to as low as you can before your controller drifts. And the way to do that is to go up to a point where your controller doesn't drift, probably the starting point, like, let's see what this is, it is 12.0, and then you're going to go down 1, or well, that's more than 1, and see if your controller starts to drift. And if not, you go back into your settings, go over, or down, my bad, and you're going to want to move this down one more and go back and check. And if it's not drifting, you know that's a good dead zone, and you want to keep doing that until your controller starts to drift. And then you want to move up your controller center dead zone 1 before your controller starts to drift. So if it starts to drift at 3.5, you're going to want to move it up to 4.0, and you're going to want to do this on the move thumbstick and look thumbstick. Next up is Axial Deadzone, and basically what this does is it makes it so you have to move your thumbsticks less in order for your thumbstick input to register. And this stuff is both preference, but I recommend, at least in my opinion, setting this stuff as low as you can until it becomes too uncomfortable, because some people can't play at a 0 axial dead zone. Their aim will just be all over the place. So mess around with your axial dead zone on the look thumbstick and the move thumbstick both. They may be different for what you like on each one. Next up, we're going to want to move over to the video tab, and we're going to want to turn up our field of view as high as we can before it starts to affect our ability to see our enemies. Basically, I have my field of view at 120 because I have a monitor right in front of my face and I'm able to see people very clearly even with my field of view up at the very max setting. Another few settings I want you guys to mess with inside the video tab. If you go all the way down here to blur, screen shake, and exposure, I want you guys to turn all 3 of those off along with full screen effects and speed lines. You don't want speed lines obstructing your vision, and you don't want screen shake throwing off your aim, and you want your screen to be as clear as possible. All those things are pretty obvious, but yes, you definitely do want those off. It always helps. Next up, I want you guys to go over to the UI tab, and this is all preference, but I believe that having an enemy UI color set to yellow, which mine is set to pineapple, not sunshine yellow, makes it easier to see enemies because yellow is such a bright color, but really it's not necessary. Again, all preference. Next up in the UI tab, I want you guys to go down to weapon offsets and make sure each weapon type has its horizontal offset set to 100%. And the reason for that is because if I set to 0%, the gun goes more towards the middle of my screen, obstructing more of my view. If I go ahead and turn horizontal offset all the way up to 100% again, it makes my weapon more towards the bottom right of my screen, allowing more of my screen to be clear of my weapon, making it so I can see more stuff on my screen, which of course is a big advantage, along with field of view being on to 120, or at least turned out from the typical field of view, which I think is like 80. So make sure you set horizontal offset to 100% for each weapon and weapon type: rifle, melee, pistol, and heavy. Okay guys, the next and final thing I want you guys to do is go over to accessibility, and let's go to reticle outline opacity. And basically what this does is the higher you turn it up, the more visible your reticle outline will be, which if you turn it down to 0.0, it makes your reticle easier to see through. But with HUD opacity, if you turn this up all the way, it kind of cancels that out, and this really makes your reticle a lot more visible. So I'll turn up HUD opacity up to 10, and Really, reticle outline opacity doesn't matter too much, but I'd still keep it at a 6 or maybe a 10 or however you want to have it. But reticle outline thickness, as it says itself, it just makes the reticle thicker, as if I had it at 1.0. It's not as thick. If I set it to 2.0, it'll obviously be more thick. Basically all this does is make it so your reticle is more easy to see and you never really lose track of where you're aiming, which is a really big help. It helped me quite a bit, especially with the sniper, because the sniper reticle is so small that it's really hard to aim and shoot with it. But those are all the settings I want you guys to mess with, and as always, I hope you guys have a good day.